Right, we're live on YouTube and recording. And it's 7 o'clock.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome to the Skegness Town Council Management Committee meeting on Wednesday the 17th of February via Zoom. For everybody watching, good evening. The agenda item number 1, minutes of the last meeting, are attached. You've got pages 12, 13, 14 and 15. Any comments?
Yeah, move it.
Okay, moved by Councillor Anderson. Councillor Simon Claxton, please.
Yeah, I was just going to say that we move them as noted.
Yeah, you're seconding that. Thank you. All in favour, please show. Yeah, that's carried. Thank you. Agenda item number 2, to note apologies received by the Town Clerk prior to the meeting. Town Clerk, please.
Yeah, we have apologies from Councillor Empson, and we've also got Councillor Steve Kirk and Councillor Dennis saying they hope to join, but they may be a little bit late because they've got overlapping meetings.
Okay, thank you. Agenda item number 3, to receive any declarations of interest. Councillor Cunnington, you've got your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, when it comes to the planning agenda, I'll be leaving the meeting as I'm on district planning.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Billy Brooks, I presume the same.
The same. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 4. The draft budget, the draft business plan for 2021 to 2025, amend business plan and action plan attached.
Right, so Mayor, this was the this plan that was discussed in the latter part of 2020. I think it was August and September that we were discussing it.
Good evening, everybody.
Evening.
Good
That's
evening.
been now updated for the current budget and for the changes made at that last meeting.
Right, could I just ask, Councillor Edginson's got his microphone on. Can't quite hear everything. So can we just, maybe the Town Clerk, could you mute him? He's disappeared. Thank you.
Yeah, so this is the plan as previously agreed with the amendments that the committee made at that time, and it's with the addition of the now approved budget.
Thank you. Anybody wishing to speak? Any questions? Councillor Anderson?
Yeah, thank you. The only thing that I can think of reading it under the corporate visions and aims and objectives, if we are lucky enough to get anything with the town plans funding, will that be incorporated in our business plan? Is it a living document as such?
Yes, it is absolutely a living document. This is the start, effectively the starting point for the beginning of April 2021. As things come and go, you will have new priorities, you will have new things that you may wish to add into this. There may be some things which you decide that you don't want to proceed with as we go through the year. The idea is it's a living document, it's monitored by this committee at the quarterly management to show progress and how we're moving forward with everything. But yes, if there is money that comes through from the town plan, then we would look at adding any projects, etc., into that in support of the existing objectives.
Okay, thank you. Okay, do we have anybody to propose that we approve the documents in front of you? Councillor Simon Claxton.
Yeah, I'd note these for approval.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a seconder?
Can I quickly come back on a question?
Yes, please do. Yeah.
Can I just ask the town clerk? I don't see lobbying as part of this. Is it part of our business plan to lobby the government and other partners for issues relating to Skegness?
Well, I mean, it has to be lobbying for a particular purpose. I'm just going to look at the action plan. So I thought there was a lobbying one in there. If you look at the action plan, the second one down, it does say to lobby, consult, improve links with, listen to comments received from other statutory bodies, voluntary organisations and individuals to ensure improving standards of service that meet with local need. So that's corporate objective B.
So we've been
I'm
proposed.
happy. Yeah, I'm second it.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. All in favour, please show. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 5, environment and climate change report and draft policy attached to declare a climate emergency and reshape policies to tackle environmental and climate change concerns with the aim of protecting Skegness for future generations and in support of the national and international efforts to control climate change and improve the environment.
Yeah, we had back in the back end of 2019, Council approved an environmental policy back then with a view to coming back with some action plans at this time in 2021. Since then, there's been quite a lot of activity in local government and headed in our sector by NALC to push for this idea of declaring a climate emergency and starting to do what we can to tackle the issue. So the climate emergency really acknowledges that human-based climate change is happening and it will affect everybody, and essentially to do what we can at this level to prevent and mitigate that situation from occurring. So going through the report, I've put some information in there to do with sea level rises, because in Skegness that is probably the single most vulnerable side of climate change. And if you look, you can see we've got records going back about 140 years on sea levels, and the rise in the level is starting to increase at an accelerated rate. So if you look back to the beginning of those records, although it was increasing, it was increasing quite slowly. You then get to about 25 years ago, and that speed has increased, quite a lot. And then in the last recorded years that we've got information for, 2018-19, you can see that that is actually accelerating further. And the prospects are that that is going to continue to accelerate, with some actually believing that the current 100-year view is not actually a realistic view and that we're going to hit that point a lot sooner. And I think there'll be more of this coming out in the national discussions with the meeting that's going to happen between all of the major economies in Scotland later this year, and then when they look at climate change and try to get a new international accord. Apart from climate change, there's also the environmental issues that affect coastal towns. Clearly, Skegness relies on a clean and natural environment in terms of beaches, and it's particularly in winter time, you know, things like attractions like the seals along the coast, bird life, etc., to bring people in winter time. We need to make sure that the environment, you know, is there for for future generations, and so this policy follows on from the original environment policy, which is to try and get the place clean and tidy as well. Looking at issues such as pollinators and biodiversity. Biodiversity, I mean, we've seen very recently with the ash tree issue, if you plant or have a single species in an area, then if something affects that, it affects everything. So we've seen that with ash trees in Skegness and the impact that's going to have over the next few years. But that applies also to other planting and to wildlife generally. And we need to be sure that when selecting things like chemicals to use on the land, that these are not going to affect biodiversity and the natural environment. I go on to talk about waste and marine plastics and the opportunity to perhaps participate and clear up. And I think many would say, well, what can a parish and town council do with all, you know, with this? It's too big an issue for a parish or town council. But if you think that in the country, there are something like in England alone, there are 9,000 parish councils and 80,000 parish councillors. You know, that actually everybody doing a little bit can amount to quite a lot of action. And I think what's being pushed by the sector is actually this needs to happen not only internationally and nationally, regionally, and then at the other tiers of local government, but also there is work to do at the very coalface. And I think there's an important role for this council to take forward. Thinking about how that might happen, I think there's the opportunity both for councillors and officers to be involved. Officers looking at what we're doing now, how we can mitigate the impact on climate change and the environment, and for councillors to actually start engaging with the public at large, because that's the true benefit of having all of these parish councils across the country. It enables a huge amount of contact with people on who are heating their houses, using cars, all of these types of things. So a real opportunity to start engaging with them and actually explaining the impact that climate change in particular is having and could have on Skegness. Because if we don't all do something, then it makes it very difficult to see how some coastal resorts are going to have a future as they are now. We're the whole of this part of Lincolnshire is flat land, and it could easily be inundated if we can't keep that sea level under control. And that's a long-term project that needs to be undertaken. And moving on to the actual policy itself, I've highlighted the areas of change from the previous policy, and you'll see in there it's starting to suggest the type of action plan that we might have in there, and in particular the forming of a working group of councillors to actually look at how we can take this forward and what actions can realistically be taken in the community. My suggestion is that the officers look at what we currently do, the machines that we use, all of the fuel, etc., that we currently consume, to see how that perhaps can be moved to a greener type of fuel in the future. Doesn't have to be massively expensive for us to do that, because will be opportunities when we come to renew equipment. And I think, we can see with things like electric vehicles taking off in a big way following government policy changes, we will see the equivalent sort of professional grounds team gear, vehicles, etc., that can be used. And when it comes to replacing those, we need to be in a good place to actually choose those which help to mitigate the environmental impact. So quite happy to take questions, but I mean, I think it's really, I'm hoping that this is the sort of agenda that you're looking to push forward, as I say, on the back of what's happening in the town and parish sector at the moment.
Thank you, Town Clerk. Councillor Anderson, please.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, this is a good paper to start the policy, or a good policy to start the ball on what we can do, as what the Town Clerk has just told us, to help the environment. The thing that I want, well, I'm happy with the recommendations, and I'll move the recommendations first and foremost. Thing that I want to concentrate probably more is actually plastics, because we got a large hospitality sector in Skegness, and the use of plastics. I think if you see in the height of the season the amount of plastics that are disposed of, not only in the bins but on the streets of Skegness, especially along the foreshore, you'll see that we got to do something about it. Seriously need to do something about it. And I think we can start with on our own cafe and the kiosks that we own, by educating or putting in greener issues like spoons shouldn't be plastic, they should be wooden, cups, the plastic takeaway ones should be recyclable ones, all the kind of issues that we can actually do on our own doorstep first, in small chunks before moving to the larger stuff, as what the Town Clerk said when we're talking about indentation by the sea on floodplains, etc. But there's things that we can do that we own and we can implement, like also the vehicles, is what the Town Clerk says, machinery, and that I can see that happening in a few years to come, but that's a national thing with the government. But if we can start education as well on the things that we can influence, i.e. our cafe, and then obviously the kiosks that we own, and then moving on to our heritage centre, education there again about climate change and the sea and the environment, how important it is to us all. It's all about education, and then obviously informing people, especially in the hospitality trade, about the use of cheap plastics from retailers. We all know who those retailers are, where they go and get their packages from, so that there is an issue there as well. But I guess that's more national than what we can do locally. But there is a group formed to look at this from a parish or town council view for the most environmentally friendly coastal seaside town. So it's starting to happen, and yes, we can influence, but I welcome this document. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Billy Brooks, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Anderson, he's absolutely right when he says that this council needs to be leading by example when it comes to climate change and things like that. We are on the coast. We are some of the most vulnerable people in the country when it comes to climate change. So it's something that we absolutely need to take seriously, and we need to be ahead of the curve when it comes to plastics that we're using, ways that we can save. I know East Lindsey, I was involved in a scrutiny carbon management panel, and that came out with some really good recommendations. So I think a working group of some kind would work well at the town council. But yeah, I'd like to second this, and thank you, Steve, for bringing it forward.
Thank you. Councillor Adrian Finlay, please.
Yeah, I'd like to commend the clerk for obviously the work he's put into the descriptive way the policy is laid out. I think it's fantastic. And I'd like to mirror what the town clerk says regarding it's a mammoth task based on the scale of just what's been written in front of us. Never mind the job in hand of obviously tackling it from Skegness and the surrounding areas, really, because it does stretch out from people going out and people coming in, water's coming out and water's coming in. So I think, yeah, it's a mammoth task. I would like to ask, I know it might be early doors, ask the question, but us as a parish council with this mammoth task in hand, is there options for us to venture out using higher authorities from district council, county council and MPs? Is it something that they would be involved in as well, not just us as a parish taking on such a big task? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Danny Brooks, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'd like to thank Steve for bringing this report forward. There is some suppliers now that I know of that don't sell any plastic at all. So, Councillor Anderson is absolutely right. And as a council, we do need to be leading from the front. Basically, as Councillor Billy Brooks said, we are pretty vulnerable to the sea. And if the sea keeps rising at the levels it is, we could soon be up to our ankles. So well done, Steve, and definitely support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, thank you to all the councillors there who, like I said, just like to point out again that Councillor Brooks just picked up on. The end user now is the only ones that can buy plastic straws, etc. They've stopped the second motion. I think you're just finding suppliers that are end suppliers for us in the industry. Myself, I'm finding it very difficult to find anything like that now. And also, Councillor Anderson raised the issues of, I think what we need to do now, and we need to act quite quickly, is there still is plastic issues out there. I think we need to get out there now and educate people on how we dispose of them properly right now, because the concerns are here today. We can go down the line and look future how we educate our own caffeine and what products we use, but I think we need to educate the people out there in the public on how we dispose of these now and make sure they're disposed of correctly. So, Councillor Finlay, did you want to speak again? Was your hand up from last time?
No, I just wondered if I could get a reaction from the town clerk, please.
I'm going to get the town clerk back in a second. I've just got Councillor Dankirk, please.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's just for those that haven't used Cafe Dansan, we as a town council have already implemented the sorts of things that have suggested. Every item that I've had from there has either been with a wooden spoon, a paper cup, and also paper cardboard type materials in which store the food items. So I do, just for the benefit of the public, we do lead by example with that respect for the operational services that we are able to control directly. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Edgington, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to offer my apologies in late joining the meeting, I was held up by an unexpected phone call. So we accept my apologies. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you. Town clerk, could you just answer the question?
Yeah. I think the point Councillor Finlay raised is a good one. Is everybody to be involved in this? So, yeah, as I've already mentioned, government are involved, but also county and district council have to be involved because they manage, a significant part of the network of services. I mean, East Lindsey is a big landholder in Skegness, including the beach. I know that Horncastle Town Council have been pressing East Lindsey for them to declare a climate emergency as well. I don't know how far that's progressed and whether such a declaration is imminent, and perhaps some of the district councillors might know if that's been raised as an issue. But it does need them to look at what they're doing, how they operate, what fuel they use, how they, obviously they're involved in the waste management of litter and the bins on the streets, and how that's done. But I think there is an opportunity for some overlap, and even with and involving members of the public. I know that there are schemes, and there have been schemes in Skegness with things like litter picks, etc. in the past, but there's never going to be enough money in local government to do the exceptional job that we need if we want to clear up all of the plastics, etc. on the beach. So public involvement and building on the public spirit, especially during lockdown, I think we've seen more people out walking, more people out willing to take a litter picker and pick a few bits up, and that's the sort of thing I think we it would be very good to encourage that and to keep that going, because I think that will supplement all the services that are being provided by all of the local authorities, and it makes the difference between it being an adequate job, which is funded through public services, to be an exceptional job. And I think if we talk to East Lindsey about how that then gets disposed of, I think many councils, many district type councils are working with their local communities and will dispose of litter, etc., that's been picked up by the public. So I think that's one way that it could work, but it also in terms of the message, because district and county council will put out information on their website through newsletters and perhaps filter it down through district councillors and county councillors. But in Skegness, there are many more of you, and therefore, the opportunity to educate and to just raise the subject and raise awareness and get people thinking about it, because I know, especially in the current climate where people have perhaps focused on other things and have got other concerns, maybe financial concerns, it's very difficult to get people thinking about having to spend money to both clean the environment and to protect us from from climate change. So I think there's a big sell there to do, and I think it's important that all layers of local government and national government are on board with the same message and try to do that. But yes, I think we should be perhaps speaking and approaching both East Lindsey and County Council and asking them to declare a climate emergency as well.
Okay, thank you. Can I just say good evening to Councillor Dennis, and Councillor Kirk was trying to get in. I think he's trying to get in. Councillor Cunnington, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think you're probably aware of this, Mr. Mayor, and also Councillor Danny Brooks. A little while ago, last year in our first term of being councillors, we were approached by an organisation that would have liked to have done a litter pick in Skegness on the beach, and it was actually so hard for them to do the litter pick. They had to jump through hoop after hoop to get to be able to do this, and it made it impossible for them to do it. Is there any way we as town council can actually put anything in place to enable people to do litter picks under our umbrella of town council? Because there's organisations there, and I think the one I was thinking of was a dance school with children, but it was impossible and was going to cost them an absolute fortune to be able to do it.
You're right there, Councillor Cunnington. It was a dance school, and it was all down. They needed public liability insurance and everything else, but the kids was going to go along and clean the beach on a couple of occasions, and they were really devastated that they couldn't. And I think they couldn't understand why. And I think it'll be down to us as councillors, whether we're district, town level, or county, we need to explain to these people why they can't pick litter. How can we educate children to dispose of waste properly when they're not accepted to be able to collect it with supervision? So I think we do need to answer these questions for them quite correctly. Councillor Anderson, please.
Yeah, I just find it incredible that, as what the town clerk said, the beach is owned by East Lindsey District Council, and yet they're asking, volunteers who want to actually go and do a clean-up, as what just been stated by those children from the dance group. They can't, because they've got to fork out a public liability insurance for that to happen, which costs money, and they have to pay out their own pockets to volunteer to go and pick litter under the ownership of East Lindsey District Council. I just find it incredible. I also find it incredible to hear the town clerk that the county council in East Lindsey, and I'm waiting to hear from Councillor Kirk, Senior, if they have actually got a climate emergency policy. In this day and age, we definitely need it. If they haven't, then I fear a motion will be coming from myself, and somebody will second it regarding this, to ask for the Lincolnshire County Council and East Lindsey District Council, who are the biggest landholders in Skegness, that they should have a climate emergency policy and not be a polluting council. Thank you.
Don't know whether councillor. Yes, sorry, Town Clerk.
I was just going to come back on a point that's made. I mean, I think that the difference is between what I would call organised litter picks via group and actually just encouraging members of the public to do it. What I'm seeing is that there are more members of the public taking responsibility and actually, getting a litter picker and a black bag and just going around and picking up a few bits of litter. If every family did that, just occasionally, it would have an incredible impact. That doesn't require public, liability insurance. Where I think the town council come in is to be talking to how that waste is then collected and disposed of. Because in the past, East Lindsey had said if there are litter picks, that they would collect the rubbish from that and dispose of it. So I think there's the opportunity for us to act as a conduit of not an organised group, but to say to people, this is how we can actually arrange for disposal. So you might have a non-organised particular day when people can go and do that. I understand once you start having a group involved, then you start to get responsibility, as we found ourselves in doing that. I mean, there is nothing to stop the town council from doing it, but it would cost money in terms of insurance and putting in, buying the litter pickers and those sorts of things. And if that's something you want to do, then of course we can do that. But I think there's sort of a lower step, which is just encouraging people to do it off their own back. You can buy a litter picker for a tenner, get a black bag, and when you go out for your walk, especially in the current climate, just pick a few bits up.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Susan Blackburn, please.
Yeah, I don't know if things have changed, but about 18 months ago, I got in touch with East Lindsey, and they actually lent us their litter pickers. They brought them down to the town hall. I picked them up. We took them down to the Brownies. They used them for a couple of days. Then I took them back to the town hall, and they actually came and picked them up, and they removed the litter as well. So it didn't cost us anything at all. Now, whether they still do that or not, I don't know.
I couldn't answer that one, but I do know that they did have problems, and the dance school they couldn't believe it, and people were asking for beach cleaners to removal of the sand and everything else, and then they couldn't collect the litter. And I go back. I don't know what the town clerk is saying, but I go back to anything to do with children and it's an educational process to learn about all the dangers of the beach. Let's not throw things in the water that shouldn't be there. They might see on the media just recently, we've had some high tides and high winds. It's brought all sorts of sea life that I've not seen on the beach and living here. And it's very interesting. Although it's sad, it is a food life for other species out there. But it was very educational and to see the change in the climate. So I think really we ought to be on the back of helping these people that can form groups, whether there's any funding to help them obtain insurance for these one-off events, I don't know. But it's something I think we should seriously look at as well. Councillor Tony Tye, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just say that for the past 4 years, Rotary Club of Skegness have organised two litter picks a year on the central beach and south. We take out a very big crew actually, and we've got our own pickers, we've got our own bags, and we sort it out. And I could tell you that East Lindsey are extremely good at organising where we drop the rubbish for them to pick up. And that's what we do. And we've done it for around about 4 years. And we actually take out some of the school children that are affiliated to the Rotary Club. And they go out because it's for the community, and they need to do stuff for the community. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Which proves then that we can find answers to these if we go to the right people. So hopefully we'll get somewhere with that. I was hoping to just bring Councillor Kirk in to see if he could answer Councillor Mark Anderson's question, but he's gone at the moment. So are there any more questions? Is he coming back?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll just see. Councillor Kirk, are you back with us?
Indeed, I am.
I don't know whether you was aware. Did you hear Councillor Anderson? You was in at the time, but I'm not sure if you caught what Councillor Anderson's question was.
Sorry, no, I didn't.
Councillor Anderson, can you just ask your question again? Sorry.
Yeah. We've heard, or we're trying to do, this paper involves a climate emergency policy for the town council. Has East Lindsey District Council got the same policy as what we're trying or approving tonight for the beach and other land that it holds in Skegness?
Sorry, in respect to what? Sorry, that's the bit I'm not quite understanding.
Okay, if you read our paper, okay,
yeah.
The policy that we're putting together puts the emphasis on us as a town council, okay, to make the public or the residents of Skegness, okay, aware about climate change and what we can do to help, okay, in actually educating the residents and holiday makers regarding climate change. And there's things that we can do ourselves because we own property. And we've heard tonight from Councillor Kirk Jr. that our cafe is already got or implementing green takeaway, wooden spoons instead of plastics, etc. So I'm wondering or asking, has East Lindsey District Council got the same policy as what we have tonight? If not, why not? Thank you.
Well, I think all district councillors on this Zoom meeting will know that there is a lot of work being done in the district at the moment around the carbon management plan, which is how we manage ourselves going forward to reduce the carbon in everything we do. And within that carbon management plan, there's also elements about environmental sustainability. So that will include things such as your beach, but a lot of it is, as you're fully aware, Councillor Hanson, a lot of it is out of everybody's hands. For example, we can have the best management plan for the environment and a carbon reduction plan. The town council can have it, and then we have people just dumping litter left, right, and centre, and particularly the plastic litter, which is the worst side, certainly from a marine conservation point of view. So yes, we do, as does the county. It's had its carbon management plan for a long, long time, and I think it would be useful if we're developing a plan that we try to dovetail our facilities in as much as we possibly can, so that not one authority is trying to do everything on its own. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Councillor Kirk.
Can I ask the town clerk to comment on what Councillor Kirk has said, Mr. Mayor? Thank you.
You can, yeah. Councillor Kirk, the reason we asked you, because Councillor Anderson at the time did ask if it was ELDC and county. So I just wanted the answer from you. Thank you.
Can I just say at this point, the trouble I'm having with Zoom is the sound keeps dropping out and I don't have a raise your hand button, so I do apologise. I keep trying to restart my computer to get it to work, but it's still playing up.
Okay, if your hand doesn't come in and you need to come in, then please just,
I'll do old-fashioned stuff.
Yeah, before I bring the town clerk in, Councillor Billy Brooks, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to add quickly to what Councillor Kirk had to say. East Lindsey have actually appointed a climate and carbon officer. So they've got a dedicated officer that's there working on the carbon plan and things like that. So they are trying, I think.
Thank you. Town clerk?
Yeah, I mean, the report I've written is exactly that. It should dovetail, and that's what I was saying. It needs to dovetail all the way down from, well, internationally, national, regionally, county, district, and town council. And the benefit of working in the town council and for you to be town councillors is that, as I said earlier, there are 9,000 parish and town councils across England alone. And so the opportunity to actually talk to the public and have an impact at that level is, that's where the opportunity is. So that, getting that message across, getting the education across, explaining the situation and what needs to happen to make the change in time, because otherwise, if this goes on for 10, 20, 30 years, then it's likely to be too late to have a significant impact on that. The fear of things like inundation and also destruction of the environment. So I absolutely think that we should be dovetailing, and the town council could focus on those areas that perhaps the district council and county council find it more difficult to focus on, at a very local level. But of course, in the report, it does say to have a group, and for that group to come up with the ideas of how to do that moving forward.
Thank you. Councillor Anderson.
Yeah, just quickly, if as what Councillor Brooks Jr. has stated, East Lindsey has a officer appointed, I think when the working group is formed, in taking up Councillor Kirk Sr.'s point, that making sure that we're dovetailed into the East Lindsey District Council, that we invite the officer or the working group. I'm not trying to teach them how to suck eggs here, but they invite that appropriate officer to come to that working group so that the councils can work together and see where they East Lindsey are regarding their policy. Because I certainly do not know, and I guess all the town councils don't know what East Lindsey's policy on waste management or anything else is. And as far as I know about county council, well, I haven't got a clue, not a clue about their waste management strategy at all. Not a clue. So it'd be interesting to find out. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Finlay.
Yeah, just like to ask the town clerk, please, when do we establish the working group? Is it tonight or will it be at a future meeting?
Town clerk, please.
I think it's up to you when you do that, but I don't see any reason why you couldn't establish it tonight, and then it can we can plan to start work from the as soon as possible to implement the policy if you approve it.
Yeah, we seem to have a significant amount of council. Sorry, Mr. Mayor, we have a significant amount of council there tonight, which might be a good opportunity to establish it tonight. So I'm thinking, with the option of the ones that are sent in their apologies, with the option of giving them an option to join it and all, if that's a possibility, please.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Dennis, please.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Apologies for being late. I was at Thursby Parish Council meeting for a start. Would it not be possible for us to ask the carbon footprint officer from East Lindsey and also county to come along and have 5 or 10 minutes with full council, so everybody was on board with this? It's just a thought, Mr. Mayor. I don't know if that's worth or if it's doable, whether that would be possible. Thank you.
Yeah, hopefully they would, and hopefully we will all be working together like they've all suggested to get this, because it is an ongoing problem and it's just going to get worse unless we address it. Somebody else had their hand up and it's just gone down. It's been proposed. Seconded by, it's been proposed by Councillor Mark Anderson that we move these, and it's been seconded by Councillor Billy Brooks. Did you want to set up a committee before we go any further?
I think we need to move the recommendations first, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, we've had it proposed and seconded with the recommendations. All in favour, please show. That's carried. Thank you. Okay.
I'd like to, sorry, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to nominate Councillor Dennis to go onto the working group because he obviously has vast knowledge and experience about waste, etc.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
Mr. Mayor, I would like to second Councillor Dennis. We might as well have an expert on waste as people that don't know what.
Okay, thank you. Are you happy for that, Councillor Dennis?
I'm pleased you think I'm such an expert on it. Yeah, thank you. No problem.
Okay, all in favour then, please show. Councillor Dennis, have we got any more? To wait for you to take your hands down. I've got loads of yellow hands up. Councillor Richard Cunnington.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I'd be quite happy to join the working group and attend as and when I can. Once I do go back to work, there may be meetings I can't attend, but I will put in every effort I can to attend and be part of the group.
Okay, well, I'd be happy to propose you that if I've got a seconder.
Seconded.
Thank you. All in favour, please show. Thank you. Councillor Dan Kirk, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also have an interest and some knowledge of renewable technologies, so I'm happy to nominate myself forward.
Okay,
seconded.
You. Seconded. All in favour, please show. Thank you. How many would we want on this group? 5 of 5, would we say?
I would think once you get above 5, it gets quite difficult. You're back into almost like a committee setting, and it gets difficult to move things along. That's not to say there couldn't be further working groups or task groups in the future to undertake a particular task that may have been agreed by this committee.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Billy Brooks, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would, if we need more people on it, I would nominate myself to go on it. Obviously, I was on the one at East Lindsey, so if
seconded.
Okay, all in favour, please show. So we've got Councillor Dennis, Councillor Kirk, Councillor Billy Brooks,
Councillor Cunnington.
Councillor Cunnington, and we want one more. Councillor Edgington had his hand up. I did see that. So, you've got your microphone on mute, Councillor Edgington.
Well, just the hand was raised because I was voting for the previous nominee. That was the reason.
Okay. Okay, so we have four members. Anybody else wishing to go on?
I'd like to propose Councillor Burnham or yourself.
Councillor Burnham, would you be interested?
Yeah, okay, put me down.
Okay, thank you. I'll second that. All in favour, please show. Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to the next agenda item, number 6, review policies. Various policies are attached. To approve otherwise, review the policies. Cemetery handbook and supplement the policy agreed in 2020. The charity street collection policy, complaints policy and procedure, customer service policy, equality policy, loan working policy, reserve policy, and the risk management policy.
Now, if we concentrate, I'll explain. The cemetery handbook is obviously a supplement to an existing policy. There's some changes there which are highlighted in the actual document itself. It's around things like not allowing firework displays, the release of animals or birds, prohibiting motor vehicles in the actual cemetery. There's a few bits and pieces like that within there. I'd also, because of some issues that we've had, I'd also like to just clarify some positions on memorials. Now, generally speaking, this is delegated to me to make a decision over what is decent, proper, etc. But what I'd like this to actually say, to give me a little bit of backing, is that we don't have on memorials, we don't have emblems or signs of societies, movements, campaigns, political affiliations, or things that could be interpreted as being nationalistic. It's really just to help me when I come to make decisions, to show that those decisions have got some backing of council. The reason behind that is because obviously all of those things can cause disharmony and discord in the community if you get people with different views. And clearly a cemetery isn't really the place to be expressing those. I think there are plenty of other places where people can express their views. Clearly, within there are religious symbols which are allowed. We've already got some obviously religious symbols in terms of cross and other signs that are in the non-consecrated part where we have other religions. But that's in respect of the cemetery handbook. There's several: the charity street collection, the complaints, the customer service policy, the equality policy, and the lone working policy, where there are very, very slim changes to the previous policy. This is really simply just an update of dates. We've changed some of the address references because they refer to the town hall. So these policies haven't really significantly changed or need to change. And then the last two, which is the reserves policy and risk management policy. The reserves policy, as you'll see in there, has got a new risk calculation. So the calculations were there before, but it's brought in new figures into there, which helps to set the context of how we manage risk using the general reserve. And then the risk management policy itself, you would see the major change there is that for items where the impact of a risk is very high, but the probability is low, that the base level is increased from a green status to an amber status, to show that the council will continue to monitor and act on those, even though the likelihood of them happening is very rare. Because obviously if they did happen, the impact would be great. So you can start to think about flooding being one of those. We don't think it's going to happen, but if it did happen, it could have massive consequences. So rather than it being green where there's no action, it'll be amber where we keep an eye on it. So those are the changes. I'm quite happy to take any questions on any of the policies that are there.
Thank you. Councillor Anderson, please.
Yeah, thank you. I'm quite happy to what the clerk has said. The only issue, well, not an issue, I totally agree with him regarding the cemetery. I was absolutely horrified when he said about nationalistic views in a cemetery. Yes, we need to, if that's an issue, then we need to actually make sure the policy says no way should that happen in a cemetery. And I hope we can all agree with that, because we do not want disharmony in a cemetery where, you know, people go to respect their loved ones and, you know, and grieve in peace, not have these awful signs of nationalism, etc. in a cemetery. Fully support the town clerk, and we should implement that. The only other issue is on equality. Yes, totally agree with it, but we don't quote the Equality Act of 2010 on protected rights. Should we not say that the Equality Act is embedded in law under the Equality Act 2010?
Thank you. Councillor Dennis, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Are you putting that forward, Mark, as a proposal?
Yes, I am.
I totally agree with the town clerk and yourself. So are we doing this on block? Because if we're doing this on block and everybody's happy, we'll just need to hear what the town clerk's got to say. And if we're happy with what he answers, I'm happy to second this to go through all on block if councillors are happy with that.
Thank you. Can I just ask Councillor Adrian Finlay, because he's got his hand up while the town clerk keeps just looking for the info.
Yeah, sorry. I've just got a concern with the town clerk could answer, please, and put mine at rest. He did say that the policies have not changed much, but on the working alone policy at the bottom says mobile phones and walkie-talkies will be available if appropriate. The only reason for the concern is because obviously we as a town council are now taking on a lot more land and not a lot more staff to cover it, so to speak. So when it says working alone and nothing's been changed, so are we saying on that we are, have we, or are we buying mobile phones or walkie-talkies for them to use? And as regards working alone, what sort of timescales are we talking about? I mean, is it a regular occurrence, daily, weekly, monthly? It's just a little bit confusing, obviously keeping it the same, but obviously having a lot more land to cover with a similar amount of staff. Are we saying we're going to give them all mobile phones to make it a lot more safer for them? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just before I bring the town clerk in to answer, then I'll ask you if you're happy to take this on block, and if we do, we've got a proposer and seconder. Town clerk, please.
If you look at page 5 of the Equalities policy, it does actually refer to the Equalities Act 2010 in the policy there, and the most of the detail has been lifted from places like ACAS, which obviously refer back to the legislation. So it does mention it in the policy, and in fact it also talks about the Race Relations Amendment Act, the Disability Discrimination Act, the Equality Act 2006 that are still in force, as well as the 2010 Act. In relation to mobile phones and lone working, currently on the ground staff, the two senior officers who have teams have got mobile phones, and if they're not going to be there, they hand them to the person who's going to be in charge. Some staff prefer to have their own mobile phones because obviously once you start carrying around multiple phones, especially if you're working, it can be a little bit difficult, and that's their preference. For the staff in Tower Gardens, we have got walkie-talkies available for them to use. Yes, it does. We do work. People do work alone, but there is a risk assessment taken. So, for example, where equipment that's likely to be dangerous or potentially dangerous, then in those circumstances, they wouldn't be working alone. When we've got people digging graves, they don't work alone because of the risk of the sides falling into the graves. But there are occasions when people are working alone or away from the main group. So you'll see that with the grass cutting team. You might have somebody quite a way off in the distance, litter picking, or undertaking some trimming or something like that. So yes, we are probably doing more lone working than we were before. This obviously affects us in the office as well, and we do have arrangements in place where we contact one another when somebody's going to be working, especially if that's going to be after dark or later in the day. then we make sure that that person has got out of the building safely, or is doing whatever they're doing, that it's been done safely, and we've got arrangements between ourselves to do that.
Thank you. Councillor Anderson, would you like to come back?
Yeah, I'd like to thank Town Clerk pointing that out to me. I'm happy with that regarding equality. Regarding lone working, yeah, it's so important if somebody is working alone, they have the means to communicate. The Town Clerk talked about working, but also we live in a society where people are attacked, you know, and especially females, you know, etc. And they got to have means and methods of communicating if they need help. It's not just accidents. So I would like to see the lone working policy strengthened rather than weakened. And thank you, Councillor Finley, for raising this issue. Yeah, I hadn't thought about it, but we must protect our lone workers at the district, at the town council. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I'll ask if you're all okay with taking this on block. And if you raise your hands, and then we can go from there. Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, so we got proposed by Councillor Anderson and seconded by Councillor Sid Dennis. So all in favour, please show. Okay, that's carried. Thank you. The next agenda item number 7, the Town Clerk miscellaneous report is attached to update the council on a number of issues. Town Clerk, please.
Right, so there's just a few issues to go through tonight. The heritage project that we have, the restoration of the Jolly Fisherman paintings, is now we've sent off the final report, but with a letter with pending matters because of the pandemic. We've been unable to fulfil the final criteria, which is to have an opening event and then to engage with the local community and get feedback from them. And we don't know when that's going to be realistically possible. We've had a conversation with the Heritage Lottery people, and they quite understand that that's the case. So we're expecting that, as far as they're concerned, the project will be signed off, but we will undertake those final bits when it's safe to do so. And that will mean reserving some of the budget that we had at the end of the financial year, just to enable those things to happen. In respect of the building, we're now just over a year on from final completion there, and the building has now been signed off by the Clerk of Works to say that it meets the criteria, not only in terms of design, which obviously we were involved in, but also in terms of the building quality. So there were a number of things between the first inspection in January and those have been remedied, and there were some other things earlier on in the year that were remedied by the building contractor. All of those things have now been completed, and so they've signed it off. So that's really now the final part of the contract. So that's the contract at an end. There's no more monies to pay or anything like that. And yeah, so it's finished. That project is now officially finished. In terms of COVID recovery, we've received £1,500 District Council grant in respect of the COVID recovery groups. So that's good news, because as soon as we can open up and start meeting with people again, then we can use those to actually, to try and support that recovery from the COVID pandemic. And we've also received a £6,000 COVID closed business lockdown payment grant, because obviously the cafe and the hall have been shut since October, and that source of revenue for the council was lost. So that's now been received. So we will be presenting all of that information in the final accounts at the end of the year, and this committee will see it as part of the final quarterly governance report, and then it will go on to council as part of the final accounts. We had some issues over a bench, some benches in Lumley Road. It was spotted by a member of the public that 2 of the benches had been removed from Lumley Road and appeared on a news item as being inside the new or the refurbished ex-Beals property. Been in contact with the owners, and those are going to be returned to us in shortly. And the intention at this moment is to put those into Tower Gardens, where they can be used. All the benches in Tower Gardens are usually very well used during the summer, and they can go down near the pavilion end, so to support the seating around the cafe and that area. Finally, moving on to the elections vacancy and PERDA. The vacancy that we have that hasn't been announced as yet will happen at the beginning of March, and so if there are 10 people come forward, then there will be an election for that seat. The other seat that we hold there will be an election for that, already been declared. It's unclear at this moment in time whether those elections, by-elections, can happen in May at the same time as the county elections, because the information released by government to the elections team in around the county elections do not include, the actual instructions do not include any by-elections at this point in time. So they're seeking clarification, but there is the possibility that the election won't take place at that time. And obviously, depending on when that information is received, it may have gone beyond the date by which an election can actually be called. So if they don't get it till after that date, then it will be later in May or beyond when that happens. But this is a good time to remind you that we will be in March entering a period of PERDA. It will be after the March council meeting, but the next management committee will be affected by that. And of course, PERDA, for those that haven't been here when there's been an election previously, it means that there is a restriction on how we communicate and what goes out to the general public. Essentially, council can't be used to promote either an individual councillor who might be standing, or a political group, or a view, or a policy. The idea is that public money can't be used to promote somebody getting elected. So that means there's a bit of restriction about how we can discuss things. It doesn't stop decisions being made. I want to make that clear. We can still go ahead and make decisions, but we just need to be careful how that's worded and promoted. We can't, for instance, promote something out on social media or in the press as having come from the town council or a group of town councillors who perhaps may be then standing in those elections or affiliated to a group that's standing in those elections. So generally speaking, it means councillors don't say anything through that period. Any communications that come out of the town council need to come through the office, during that period of time, which is protocol anyway. And I'd ask councillors to be careful about what they say in council, especially when we're like live as we are now on into the public. And also there may be, depending on what motions might come forward, we might need to look at those motions and make sure that the wording of them is appropriate as well. So that report's for noting.
Thank you for your report, Town Clerk. Councillor Cunnington, oh, you took your hand down. You did have your hand up. Did you want to speak, Councillor Cunnington?
Yes, please, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I thought.
A couple of things there I've just picked up on from the clerk, and I do thank him for his report. I'm fully aware that those benches that were outside Beals were very heavily used benches, a lot of footfall on them. Are we going to be lobbying anybody, whether it be county or East Lindsey, or are we responsible for putting in benches back? Because there's not many in the town that are free benches to use. There's lots that belong to private companies, cafes and things, but they do obviously like their bench to be used for their purposes only. There's not a lot of free seating for the general public that just want to rest or to just take 5 minutes out. So I think we need some benches back there. They were there, so I'd like them to stay there. And just a quick point, just on the Purda situation, just a bit of information and advice, really. Are we allowed to announce community grants that we're doing at present? I mean, I personally have got, with yourself, Mr. Mayor, a couple of district council community grants in process, and hopefully should be finished this month. We would like to announce them. Is that possible during PERD, or is that a big no-no?
Okay, thank you. I'll bring the Town Clerk back in. I've got a couple more that will probably want to ask questions, so I'll bring the Town Clerk in at the end and answer all of them together. Is that okay with you, Town Clerk?
Yes, that's fine.
Councillor Edgington, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question to the clerk. In your report, which you state about by-elections not likely to be held on the county council elections, but am I right in saying that the elections for the police and crime commissioner will still take place on the same time, on the same day as the county elections? Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
I did read an article on that one. Councillor Danny Brooks, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, basically the same as Councillor Cunnington about the benches. Were they on East Lindsey land or the Beals department stores land? And also, they are very, very well used. And I think it's a crying shame that we're taking things out of the town centre and dragging people away from there, because you know they do like to have a sit down. Some people can't walk all the way around, so they have to sit down. And I'm just, you know, it's just a shame that we're losing more out of the town centre. Thank you.
Yeah. Town Clerk then, please.
Right. In response to the benches, I did have a conversation with the owner and said, look, these are probably the most used benches in on Lumley Road. You know, they're always got people sitting at them. Unfortunately, the actual benches were, one of the benches was fully on what was the Beals land, and the other bench was partly on that land. Now, as Councillor Ty will know from when he tried to have some benches from the Rotary Club installed on Lumley Road, there's very limited opportunities to actually for space to put them. Now that it seems that Beals, or the people who have taken over the Beals building, will be coming out right to that line that's along there and using that their forecourts effectively. It means that space is no longer available for the town council to use to place benches, and that has effectively removed you know, space that we could use. There isn't many areas where those benches can actually go, and it took 6 to 9 months previously to agree an area where the last lot of benches could go. And at that point in time, we actually thought we're not going to fit any more benches down the road without them obstructing the pavement. So obviously we've got to leave sufficient room for people with mobility scooters, etc., push chairs, prams to get by. And it does become very difficult if those forecourt areas of the shops are not available to be used. So if it's possible to get them back somewhere, then we can explore that. But I'm not optimistic at this point in time, and I know that it's a very long process to go through to get because we have to get highway permission to do that. In relation to the grants, I would suggest you speak to the monitoring officer at East Lindsey. My own view is you possibly shouldn't be publicising those during the PERDA time, but my advice would be go and speak to the monitoring officer at East Lindsey, because they're East Lindsey district grants, and they will no doubt have a view on what can and can't be done. The by-election, yes, we've said the police commissioner will be elected at the same time. Again, I think what's happened is because they are main elections, that's what government have put into their documentation. So they specifically referred to county elections and the elections of police commissioners. Because by-elections generally, well, our elections wouldn't be due at this time. By-elections are one-off, they've not been covered, and it will take whatever time for their elections team to get the direct feedback from government to see whether or not they can include them time or not.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Richard Cunnington, did you want to come back on that one? Or did you? I'm not sure whether you took your hand down. I'm not sure you know whether your hand's up or not. Sorry. I did see it go off and come on.
No, I'd like to come back, please, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'd like to, so long as this is okay with everybody and we can get support, I'd like to ask to see if we can get our county councillor, Councillor Steve Kirk, to have a word with county to see if we would get permission to put the benches with the back towards the road along the same line that the dustbins and trees are, so that they wouldn't be hindering any pedestrians, any scooter users, any wheelchair users, and they would actually act as a barrier for people stepping out on the footpath onto the main road there. I think that would be an ideal sort of location. They would be looking at the shops, so fair enough, it's not the best of looks, but at least they've got a chance to have a seat and have a rest, and the benches still be put in place. So whether we can ask for Councillor Kirk to help on this one, please.
Councillor Kirk has dropped out of the meeting again at the minute. I think he's having issues. But
Mayor, I mean, it's quite normal. I'm quite happy to speak or go through the process of approaching highways. There is an approach to do it. We have done it before in terms of asking when we had the benches put on the end of Lumley Avenue, which sits sideways just back from the bus shelter there. But as I say, it does take a long while because there's a whole rigmarole of processes. It's not only if they're satisfied of the positioning, they have to do surveys. For example, are there services running underneath those benches? And that's what takes the time. Because obviously we can't put a bench over, a service way because they might need to access those services. So I can take it forward. If management committee feel that they want to explore the opportunity of doing that, then I can take that on. But what I'm saying is it will take a little while to get that moving and get through all of the process that's necessary.
Thank you, Town Clerk. If I could just come back on that one, I can see where Councillor reluctance coming from. However, I would straight away see the danger if somebody actually mounted the pavement accidentally and mounted a curb. I wouldn't want to put anybody in danger, but that's on my own personal view, and I would take that into account. Councillor Anderson, please.
Yeah, thank you. The clerk is absolutely correct. I remember back in 91 to 93, the town council asked the co-op then, because I was a co-op member, to if they could place some those seats there, and the co-op agreed. That was the Nottingham co-op at that time, if I remember rightly. Yes, and that's how those seats got there. Because the co-op gave permission for it to go on their land. The clerk is absolutely right. When I was a county councillor, it's virtually impossible to get any street furniture through the county council because the footpaths are so small on Lumley Road, believe it or not. Because of the footfall of people using the footpaths, they see it as an obstruction on the footpaths, especially disabled people and people with vision issues. So basically, it is hard. They have to do risk assessments. They have to do SALT. They have to do all sorts of issues, and it takes such a long time. It's a shame we're losing this. I feel that maybe we need to ask Beals again, the new owners, if they would like or help us put some street furniture there and appeal to their good nature and see what they come up with. Because I agree with everyone. I don't want to see any street furniture being moved. People do use it regular, and it's nice to have some street furniture in the town. But it's going to be hard to get the county council to do it. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Findlay.
Yeah, it's just regarding the £6,000 closed business grant. Yeah, it's a nice chunk of money. It's a good help. I'd just like to ask the clerk if this is sufficient to keep us stable at the moment, because in the actual agenda it does state that this should help to ensure that the council does not lose money, which is great. But do we know how long that's for, and if that's enough to stop us losing money? And if not, is there more grants available, please? Thank you.
Mayor, do you want me to come back in now, or do you want to go through the others?
Let me, Councillor Cunnington, you still got your hand up. Have you left your hand up by mistake? Yeah, I think you left it up. Yeah, please do, Town Clerk.
Right, the £6,000 is effectively a sum of money that goes from when we closed in the end of October through till the end of March. We are getting the other support grant, which because we've got furloughed staff and we meet the criteria, so we're getting some money in from that as well. That effectively, what that will do is help us to offset the costs in relation to the cafe, which is sitting there but not doing anything, and the space, which is obviously is there as well, and the loss of income from the hall. So that will help. It doesn't offset the big chunk of income that we've lost on the car park, or the additional expenditure on PPE and other equipment that we had. But it will, if we apply that to the building, to the hall and to the cafe, then I see those coming in pretty much at a break-even situation for the year, which is, a positive outcome, I think, given the year that we've had. And it will allow us then to start whenever we're allowed to start, from scratch again. So yeah, I mean, it won't offset all of the costs, but it's certainly going to help us having received that.
Thank you. Can I just ask a question, Town Clerk? Are you referring to the local restrictions grant, that one?
The
£6,000, is that the local
Six-
restrictions grant?
It's the, hold on, I can tell you which one it is. It's the, it's got a specific name. It's the COVID closed business lockdown payment grant.
Yeah, and I'm not getting the two confused, but I do think that the last grants that were paid were dated until the 15th of February. And I think the next grant, it runs from the 15th of February, but I think it's going to be announced at the budget, I do believe. So hopefully we might.
Yeah, there might be some more if that continues beyond. Yeah, if the Chancellor decides to continue that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Are there any other questions? Councillor Ty, you had your hand up as you put it back down.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I was just going to concur with the town clerk about the length of time it took to get those seats in. From when I decided that we were going to do the project of supplying Skegness with 5 seats, it was 23 months to get them installed.
Wow.
And most of that was through the councils not coming back to us and getting surveys done and everything else. It was a long drawn out thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, Councillor Cunnington asked if it's something that we wanted to do as a council. The town clerk did say he would if we wanted him to. So, are there anybody else wishing to back Councillor Cunnington and take it further, or do you think it's not a way forward? Councillor Steve Kirk, please.
Yeah, thank you. I've finally got my hand working correctly. I think we should take this forward. As said by other councillors, the benches are well used. We have elderly residents and many people coming to visitors who actually just want to sit down, have a natter and just watch the world go by. So I think we should do it. I'm conscious that I think 23 months is probably going to be optimistic at the moment, because as I'm sure most councillors know, district and county councils are looking, not just in Skegness, but around the country, at actually removing street furniture, removing street clutter for some of the reasons that other people have mentioned. People think it's about vandalism. It's not about vandalism. It's about liabilities. So they remove as much street furniture as they can, try and keep everything as clean and simple as they can. So if anybody trips over anything or falls or knocks themselves against it, it's not their fault. So whilst I think it's going to be a long journey, I think it's something we should support, because if anything, I'd like to see more benches down there, not less. Let's get people spending time near our shops, because as we all know, they need every little bit of help they can get when we're allowed to open again. So if we can do something to help them, I think as a town council we should. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Definitely. Thank you. Councillor Dennis, please.
Yeah, absolutely 100% behind that. Happy to second that. We need to get on. Thank you.
Yeah, it was Councillor Kurt seconded, I think. Councillor Cunnington, Councillor Henderson, you've got your hand up. You've got your microphone on mute, Councillor Anderson.
Totally agree with what Councillor Kirk has said and fully support it. But I think we need to have a conversation with the new owners of Beals to actually ask if they can, we can use some of their land for these benches in good spirit, in partnership working.
Thank you. Councillor Cunnington, did you want to come back in?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I understand more than most and about disabilities and obstructions and everything else, which is why I did suggest putting them down the roadside. I know it causes another hazard, but along that roadside, just further along, there are some metal railings outside of Barclays Bank and things, so they could be with their back to those railings there. Or if not, your other location you've got in that local vicinity, and there are already some benches, would be to move around some of the benches outside the big open space of NatWest Bank there, which I'm not sure if that's county council land, and increase the bench situation just there outside the bank a little bit.
Thank you. Town clerk?
Yeah, yes. I mean, I did have a conversation with the owners of the previous bills, and it's to do with their plans. They plan to actually use that area outside the shop as part of their whole facility. So that's why it's not available for us to use anymore, and why they removed the benches. So I think that's going to be quite difficult in that particular area. I don't know whether any of the other businesses might be willing to allow, street furniture there. The area outside Barclays, at the end of Lumley Square there are a couple of benches that I know, and again, I think Councillor Tye will probably remember, it was very, very difficult to find an area there which hasn't got services underneath the pavement. And that's the real, we've got cabling, we've got, electric cabling, we've got other service pipes and all sorts of things going on under that area. And it's quite difficult to find a position which allows us to put the benches, drill into the actual surface that's there, and also be easily removable, because obviously county don't want to have to pay extra to have benches removed if they need to get at the services that are underneath, or indeed any of the utilities want to get at services underneath. So that 2-year period, yeah, I mean, we can make the request, we can ask where it may be possible from a county perspective, and if anybody has connections with any of the businesses along there and knows that they might be willing to cooperate, then that could be a useful way forward.
Thank you. Councillor Tye.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, if I remember rightly, Steve, we had 3 meetings with LCC on trying to get those 2 benches in place. And this again was over about a 3 or 4 month period. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I think it's quite clear that we all want this. We all want this to. We want to see more benches and not less. So I think in the meantime, we're going to have to vote on this. The report is the clerk deals with this. It might take a long time, but he has said that we can house these in the Tower Gardens. But I think it's something that we should still continue to fight for. Is that what you're willing to add in, Councillor Cunnington?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. So long as the main fight is to get benches reinstated in Lumley Road, I'm more than happy.
Councillor Kirk.
Oh, sorry.
Councillor Kirk, are you happy to second that we continue with that? I think you seconded it.
Yeah, more than happy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Anderson, did you want to just come back?
Very, very briefly, in view of what the town clerk said about the new owners of Beals, I think to get those benches moved down maybe to another shop, you write a letter to the other owners of those shops, Mr. Mayor, and actually ask them if they're happy enough to have some street furniture, which is near to where the original street furniture was, those benches at Beals, and see if they're happy enough to have them outside their properties. A nice letter from yourself, okay, is better than an officer's letter, I think, in this occasion, because it's a community issue. And see if they're willing to have that those benches put placed outside their shops. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm happy to do that, Councillor. I'll do it, Councillor Anderson. I'll do that through the office with the town clerk, because we don't want to be putting any wording that is incorrect. Councillor Tony Tye, you had your hand up. It's gone back down.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, it was still up from asking the question.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Cunnington, your hand's still up. No, he'd made a mistake. Okay, so it's been proposed and seconded. This is the route to take, and we will ask the shops if anybody's willing to take them on. So all in favour, please show. Thank you. Thank you very much. That's carried. Okay, agenda item number 8, planning applications for consideration. We've got Councillor Brooks that will be leaving.
Could I be removed?
Bye, everyone.
Yes, I'll be leaving as well.
Councillor
Mr. Mayor.
Cunnington, Councillor Edgington.
I'll be leaving as well.
Right. Councillor Dennis as well, yeah, and Councillor Brooks. Right.
Good night, guys.
Good night.
Okay, agenda item number 8, planning applications for consideration. 8.1, planning permission for an extension alterations, an existing dwelling to provide a kitchen at 4 Ronald Close.
Mayor, there were, if you look on the right-hand side, the location plan, I'm having difficulty seeing it because it's an overlay onto, but the houses or the properties here, the neighbouring properties on this side, I don't know whether you can see my cursor moving.
No, we can't. Sorry.
Right. Okay. Let me see if I can. Right. Can you see?
Yeah.
That right.
Yeah,
these properties here wrote a letter of support in relation to this. The properties here, there are no comments from at this moment in time.
Anybody got any questions?
Yeah, can I ask Mr. Mayor whose ward this is in?
Ronald Close.
It backs on to, it's between Lincoln Road and Grosvenor Road.
Lincoln Road and Grosvenor Road.
Therefore, the clock, is it?
No, I think where the town clerk, I think it's up Grosvenor Road and behind the back near the little estate there to the right, Councillor Anderson. As you drive up on the same side as the old YMCA, turn right.
Yeah, I know it is, but I just want to know the view from the ward member. That's all, Mr. Mayor.
So I'm just trying to work that.
It'll be Woodlands or Scarborough or whatever.
I think you, Councillor Blackburn's right. I think that falls into Scarborough.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure because the other side of Lincoln Road falls into one section.
Yeah, because it goes straight up Grosvenor Road, the boundary.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's on Woodlands side, Scarborough side.
Woodlands. But the town clerk, you said there's been no objections, town clerk?
No objections. Obviously, there's still time for that to happen.
And
but
four letters of support.
The 4 letters of support from the neighbours on the northwestern side.
Mr. Mayor, my only concern is I know where this area is, and basically the properties are very close together, very, very close, and that's why I was asking for the ward member's view on it.
Thank you. If anybody wants to come out, I can't see individual.
Councillor Claxton's got his hand up there.
Councillor Claxton, please.
Yeah, I mean, if he's got 4 neighbours that are supporting him, the people that back onto him that don't, they're not opposing it. We've had no comments, but just say we move it. It's a simple application for an extension to provide a kitchen or a bigger kitchen, I'm guessing. But yeah, I believe that these are little bungalows around the back off of Bryan Avenue. It's these ones down there. So yeah, I'd propose that we move it.
Yeah, I think you could find that some of the owners are own blocks a block at a time here, or maybe more. If there's been no objections, I don't see why we shouldn't support this. And I think people, if they come forward at a later date, like the town clerk says, there's none up to now, but there's 4 letters of support, so I think we have to go with that.
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. All in favour, please show. Hopefully the town clerk can see the votes.
We've got 8 raised hands.
9. Is it?
9 now. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on to 8.2. Diversion of the public footpath number 260. Phase 5 Saxon Field, land adjacent to Walk Lane, Skegness.
So, Mayor, if you recall, this was something that was raised following the application, the actual properties themselves, and the proposed route is now around the site and back here. The Lincolnshire County Council officer who's responsible for footpaths has requested that this is clear, the plan is clearly joined to the existing footpath. There's a bit of a gap just there. And also that this, rather than it being a footbridge, that there's a culvert put in. But unclear, that's a matter of East Lindsey planning, but that's the request that's been put in. And then this then joins back up to the footpath that goes off in the direction of down Wolf Lane and that side.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson.
Yeah, thank you. I'm happy with this. Support LCC, footpaths officer, in his observations. It's something that we asked for under this new social housing development on this site. So I'll move it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kirk.
Yeah, thank you. I don't have any issues with this at all. But I'm sure when we looked at it originally, we did ask about the extra length and the grass cutting. Have we had any confirmation from LCC that they will increase their grass cutting payment to allow us to cut this extra part of footpath?
We currently don't cut this particular footpath.
Oh, that's fine then. Have it as long as they like.
Councillor Danny Brooks.
Yes, it was the same sort of concerns as Councillor Steve Kirk about will it cost us any extra to cut it? Are we likely to be lumbered with the cut of that in the future?
Yeah. Okay.
That's a difficult question to answer. Yeah, I think there are a lot of areas where both county and district would like to pass certain services across for town and parish councils to undertake. Whether this will be one of them in the future, I don't know.
Okay, thank you. So it's been
Could I
proposed.
just come back in, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Will where the footpath is going to be placed, the one that goes straight across the field, no one will actually notice if that's not been cut. But the one that looks to go around here, will this be noticeable, and will people blame us when it doesn't get cut because we don't cut it? That's my worry. If anything's going to come back on us, because the county council will lumber us with anything they possibly can.
Yeah, I think you're spot on that, Councillor Brooks. You know, we can, without doubt, it will be for us to be able to be cutting that in some time to come.
No, I think because it's alongside the Winthorpe drain, I think certainly a swathe will be cut by and maintained by the drainage board. I'm not sure, looking at the location of the path though, whether that swathe would reach the actual path, or indeed we haven't really got details of how that path's going to be made up. So at this moment in time, so I imagine that's going to be a reserve matter that will be discussed with the planning officers at the time.
Okay, Councillor Brooks, did you want to come back in?
No, that's fine, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, it's been proposed and seconded. So all in favour, please show.
We've got 9, 10.
Item 8.3. Planning permission for alterations to existing shop front, provide a shop entrance door, entrance alleyway and security shutters. That's down High Street, Skegness 36. Councillor Simon,
could I just quickly ask the clerk if I need to declare an interest as it's on the High Street? I never noticed the address until just now.
Okay, Town Clerk.
It doesn't say what is it a similar business yours, or is it public to see that it's going to affect your business in any way?
No, I don't think it is. But obviously it could change in some time. I don't think it's the same sort of business at the moment.
It sounds like you're fairly safe then, because it's a different business. It's unlikely to affect your particular business at this time, and if it was a change, it would have to come back anyway.
I think looking at that, I would be reading that it's just an alteration to the shop front, provide a new shop front with the security shutters. I don't know whether it's pointing out that whatever shop it's going to be. Councillor Claxton, please.
Any plan that comes, any planning that comes through, any plan applications that come through that's going to update any existing shops that town's going to make it look a little bit nicer, I'd support it. It's just doing somebody doing up another shop. I'd like to move that we support this one.
Thank you.
I'll second it, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Blackburn.
Sorry, I was only going to second. Councillor Claxton.
Okay, thank you. It's been proposed and seconded. All in favour, please show. Have we got 10 there, Town Clerk? I think. Yeah, 10. 8.4. Planning permission change of use for part of an existing fishing lake and camping site to provide a touring caravan site for 11 number of caravans and construction of an internal access road. That's at down Mill Lane, Birchwood at Mill Lane. Councillor Dan Kirk. Oh, he's under. Councillor Anderson.
Thank you. I'd like to support it. It's gone now. Sorry. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'd like to support this application. I supported the application. It was a really difficult job to get through when I at East Lindsey District Council because of the access of this site, but eventually it was granted many years ago. This is an improvement, obviously, onto the site to what it was then to what it is proposed now. I think touring caravans, yes, I think that's the future as well, where people want this kind of facility, and there is a shortage in Skegness itself for this kind of site. So I'm happy enough to move it, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Blackburn.
Yeah, I'll second that. It's just going across what now they're dragging the tourer vans over a field, and when it's wet, it's not ideal. So it's an improvement.
Yeah, Councillor Claxton.
There's no, I know it's already an existing site or anything, but there's no environment agency, anything like that. Any reports from them at all for anything, or?
Not that I've seen.
No, it is an existing site, and I think it's great that people are still willing to invest in Skegness, and long may it continue. So I'm going to be supporting. So we've had it proposed and seconded. All in favour, please show.
We've got 10.
Thank you. That brings us up to the end of tonight's meeting. I'd like to thank everybody for attending, and if anybody's watching, thank you for attending. We'll go forward and do what we said tonight, and we'll see you at the next meeting. So all we can say is stay safe, hands, space, and let's bring them numbers.